President Raisi has died in a helicopter crash, and Hossein, Amirabdollahian, the foreign minister, is also dead.
Israel has always thought of Iran as the head of the snake, and rightfully so. Iran is the country that funds Hezbollah, it funds Hamas, it funds Houthis, it funds about 24 terror groups in the Middle East. Jain friends, I'm Major Gaurav Arya and you're watching the Chanakya Dialogues English. Like this video, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to press the bell icon. Friends, you know what's happened in Iran? President Raisi has died in a helicopter crash, and Hossein, Amirabdollahian, the foreign minister, is also dead, and also the governor or the chief administrator of their East Azerbaijan province. So East Azerbaijan is a province in Iran, and the governor also died, and they were traveling in one helicopter. Now, a lot of conspiracy theories going around, obviously, and celebration very strangely amongst Iranians staying outside Iran. Obviously, I'm sure that there are many Iranians inside Iran who want to celebrate, but they can't because there are repercussions. But people staying outside, abroad, non-resident Iranis, so to say, they are celebrating and they are saying that this guy was responsible for so much of the bad name that Iran has got, and he's responsible for the current state of Iran, and those people are celebrating. Also celebrating are other people who are against Iran and Iran's policies. First of all, and this is not a conspiracy theory, but these are just some logical questions that come to mind. Three helicopters. And my understanding is that the helicopter carrying the president of Iran would be the most well-maintained, would have the best maintenance crew, would have the best pilots possible in Iran, would be most thoroughly checked as far as security and safety features were concerned. Three helicopters traveling through similar inclement weather, because they were pretty close to each other and they were traveling in similar inclement weather. Only one helicopter goes down. Nobody's been able to say. They're saying mechanical failure, some people are saying bad weather. I know that helicopters are not 100% reliable. Helicopters are not like fixed-wing aircraft. Helicopters are more unstable than fixed-wing aircraft. Fixed-wing aircrafts are fixed-wing are aircrafts with, fixed wings. Yeah. So those are highly stable aircraft, and helicopters are not so stable. That I'm aware of. But what I still can't figure out is three helicopters going close by, only one crashes. Let us assume that has happened. Let us assume there is no foul play. But here, we must understand who has the most to gain in Iran. And whenever this happens, there is an inquiry, and people are talking about it. So let's figure out who has the most to gain in Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about Ibrahim Raisi. Ibrahim Raisi was the right-hand man of the supreme leader, Khomeini, of Iran. And many people say that Khomeini was 85, 86 years of age, and he has multiple health problems, and he has been mulling either retiring or handing over charge to somebody else because his health does not permit. And all foreign agencies, are putting their money on the fact that, it's only a couple of years more, 1 or 2 years more. So who would be his natural successor? His natural successor, naturally, would be Ibrahim Raisi, because that is what everybody was saying, and it was accepted widely. It was widely accepted in the power circles of Iran that Ibrahim Raisi would take over whenever the supreme leader decided to quit. And who would take over from Ibrahim Raisi? Ladies and gentlemen, obviously his vice president, Mohammad Mukhbar. Today, Mohammad Mukhbar has been appointed as a temporary figure, a temporary head of state, an acting president, if you will. And within 50 days, according to Iranian law, there has to be an internal election in which people will decide who to elevate to that position of president of Iran. Mukhbar is a very powerful leader within Iran, and some people say a tad too ambitious. That is what people on social media are saying. He's extremely ambitious. There are other things also. One thing that immediately strikes you is that as soon as the news started getting out that, Ibrahim Raisi had been killed, along with his foreign minister, both of them hawks, of course. The first reaction that came from Israel was, hey, we haven't done anything. And nobody was blaming Israel initially. People may have had their suspicions because Israel is not above removing their enemies if they get too tiresome for Israel. Now, this is not something that Israel has not done before. Of course, they haven't removed a head of state before. They haven't executed or neutralized a head of state. But there's always a first time. Now, the first thing that Israel says is, hey, we haven't done anything. Don't look at us. So Israel tries to put itself in the clear. Now, why would Israel do this? What interest would Israel have in sort of getting these people removed? Israel has long maintained, and I have also said it many a time, Israel has always thought of Iran as the head of the snake. And rightfully so. And rightfully so. Because Iran is the country that funds Hezbollah, it funds Hamas, it funds Houthis, it funds about 24 terror groups in the Middle East. It seeks to control the internal politics and domestic politics of countries across the Middle East. They have their assets in Yemen, they have their assets in Syria, in Lebanon, in Palestine, in Saudi Arabia, even in the UAE. They have their assets everywhere. And this is how they control the internal politics of other countries, by funding these rabidly militant radical Islamist groups. That is what Iran does. And it was getting too much for Israel, especially after the 7th of October attacks. Now, the 7th of October attacks did not make the Israeli intelligence services legendary in their own way. They were not making them look very good. And something had to be done. Could the Israelis have done it? I would not put it beyond the Israelis, because they're absolutely clear. I've spoken to a few Israelis, many of them senior people. And they always say that most of it is fiction and what has happened in the past. We don't do this any longer. And they take great pains to say that, obviously if somebody attacks, we'll attack. But, knocking off people in other countries is not something that Israel does. They have been very, very categorical. But if you look at Israel's history, their history says something else. When 11 sports people were killed in the Munich Olympics, it took Israel more than a decade. But Kidon, the Mossad's hit squad, it's called Kidon. Kidon took almost 15-20 years. It didn't matter to Kidon. They just went on relentlessly till they found the last person. People who had financed, planned, equipped, actually pulled the trigger. They killed everybody. They killed everybody. These people have done operations in the past that would shock the most hardened military veterans. They will go anywhere on earth, do whatever it takes, and get the job done. They've done it in the past. So could the Israelis have done it? Obviously. They're very, very capable of doing it. They have experience in such operations, and a simple act of sabotage is not something which is beyond Mossad. So the clear question is, could Mossad have done it? Of course they could have done it. Of course. Did they do it? I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. There'll be a lot of blame game from tomorrow after he's buried. There will be a grand funeral, and there'll be people attending that funeral. There will be some heads of state. At least I think Pakistan will go, because Pakistan wants to be seen as close to Iran, because Pakistan needs Iranian oil and they need some sort of an excuse to get out of that oil pipeline. I mean, get oil, but not through the pipeline. $18 billion, you know the story. So I'm expecting somebody very senior from Pakistan to go for the funeral, but I don't know otherwise. I mean, China could send its foreign minister or deputy foreign minister. It depends. It depends. But, could the Israelis have done it? Yes. They're very capable of doing this sort of an operation. They've proven it multiple times in the past. And the last thing is that, who are these two guys, by the way? Ibrahim Raisi and his foreign minister. These were the biggest supporters of the Chabahar port. They actually wanted the Chabahar port to come up very well. And they were the biggest supporters. They were saying, let's put in money, let's put in diplomatic heft and capital, and let's do everything to make sure that Chabahar port works. And who did not like the Chabahar port? Both the Americans and the Chinese did not like it, because the Chinese have always thought that Chabahar is a counterweight to Gwadar. And Gwadar is the termination point of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is the flagship venture of the Belt and Road Initiative. So why would the Chinese like Chabahar? Did the Chinese carry out this operation? Unlikely. Unlikely. The Chinese wouldn't do this. They would use money, they would use political pressure. I don't think the Chinese would do it. But what about the Americans? The Americans never wanted Chabahar. The Americans were threatening sanctions just 3 days back. Sanctions on India. They were threatening sanctions. And so many things have happened. Very recently, we signed a 10-year deal for Chabahar. One of our union ministers went there. He went and signed a 10-year deal that India would look after Chabahar port. And how would India, take care of this? How would India, and what use does Chabahar port have for India? One of the biggest uses is the North-South Economic Corridor. And the North-South Economic Corridor, it starts off in Russia, passes through Chabahar port in Iran, and comes to India. Apart from India, the other two are absolute enemies. Russia is an enemy of the US, Iran is an enemy of the US, and these are stated enemies. Could US have had anything to do with this? Absolutely yes. So we are looking at 3 scenarios. An internal power struggle in Iran, which led to this. I don't buy the story of the weather being bad and the helicopter collapsing, because 1 helicopter, yes. 3 helicopters, rest of the 2 are absolutely safe. The weather gets only 1 helicopter. The weather gets only 1. Had there been 1 helicopter, and there have been so many cases where senior people, generals, heads of state, their helicopters have crashed. So I'm not doubting a helicopter crash theory. It's highly possible with a helicopter that a helicopter will crash. It's highly possible. I'm not doubting that. I'm saying that his was not the only helicopter. There were 2 other helicopters. There were 3 helicopters in the same weather conditions. And the helicopter with the best maintenance, the best spare parts that money could buy, the best pilot, the best crew crashes, and the other 2 don't. It's just a theory. I'm not a pilot. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I could be. But it's just a theory. So first is internal. Was it a power struggle in Iran that led to this? Number 2, the Israelis. Could the Israelis have done it? Absolutely. And the Americans. I would not put the Americans beyond it. The Americans could have done it, just given a nudge to the Israelis. Because, the biggest thing in any operation, somebody very senior once told me that in any operation, a clandestine operation, a covert operation, 80% of effort goes in covering your tracks. 80% of the effort goes in covering your tracks, not in actually executing the operation. How do you cover your tracks? How do you ensure that you're not found out? So obviously, if Israel plans an operation and Israel gets found out, there would be simply too much heat. This is not a random Iranian scientist that you're killing, or a random general of the Islamic Republican Guard Corps. This is not Qasem Soleimani that you're killing. This is Raisi, the president of Iran. It's not a small thing. You're going after the president of Iran. So could the Israelis have done it on America's wink and nudge? Highly possible. Again, I've painted all the scenarios. It's too early, to tell. There will be, statements coming out of Iran in the next 24 hours. And we'll be there with you. And we'll cover this story yet again. We're just waiting for more information to come out of Iran. And in tomorrow's Chanakya Dialogues, we hope to give you more data and more news on this very, very important incident that has happened in Iran. How it will change and impact geopolitics is something that the next few weeks will reveal. Thank you very much for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. And if you like this video, press the like button, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to press the bell icon. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram, Bharat Mata Ki Jai.